All right, you ready to dive into the latest crypto craziness with us? We're serving up Bitcoin whispers, those oh no, not another recession vibes,
Mhm.
and trying to make sense of the regulators, all with zero jargon, maximum insight.
And it is a fascinating time to be watching all this unfold. You've got these tectonic shifts happening in finance, decentralized finance squaring off against the old guard, governments trying to figure out what to do with it all. It's a wild ride.
Hold on to your hats, folks. Speaking of wild rides, let's kick things off in the East. China. They always seem to be cooking up something interesting in the crypto world, don't they?
Always. So, a former Chinese finance minister just made headlines, urging authorities to keep a close watch on crypto. Now, before you think they're about to go full Bitcoin fangirl,
There's a catch. There's always a catch.
right, it's all about control. See, China is not just worried about crypto, they're worried about anything they can't directly manage, right? Think capital controls, promoting their own digital yuan. Crypto kind of throws a wrench in those plans.
So it's less about embracing the tech, more about making sure it doesn't rock their economic boat.
Exactly. And this matters to you because it shows the power struggle going on behind the scenes. Decentralized currencies, like Bitcoin, they threaten the control governments are used to having over their financial systems. Big time.
Makes you think back to those surveys a few years ago asking if crypto was a risk to traditional finance. Now experts are saying crypto might just become the dominant system if it stays on this trajectory. It's a whole different ballgame.
A total flip. And here's where it gets even wilder, despite all the global uncertainty right now. Wars, elections, economic jitters, you name it. Crypto analysts. They're remarkably united.
Oh. Did everyone suddenly become best friends in the crypto world while we weren't looking?
Well, at least when it comes to Bitcoin. The price predictions, overwhelmingly bullish. And they're not just pulling this out of thin air. We're talking serious technical analysis here. Momentum indicators, historical trends.
Okay. Before we dive into the technical mumbo jumbo, give us the bottom line. What are the analysts actually seeing?
One prominent macroeconomist who specializes in tracking these financial cycles is predicting at least a 60% surge in Bitcoin's price. We could be talking $80,000 by the end of this month. And get this, $100,000 by year end.
Okay, now you've got my attention. So is it time to dust off those virtual pickaxes? Is this the next crypto gold rush about to happen?
It's definitely building towards something big. But interestingly, some analysts are saying the real wave, the one where everyday people jump in, that might not happen until Bitcoin crosses that six-figure mark. Like there's a psychological barrier there.
A seeing is believing kind of thing. It needs that wow factor to really hit the mainstream.
Precisely. And speaking of wow moments, let's talk about another development making waves. The SEC versus Ripple saga continues.
Oh yeah, that whole thing. Didn't Ripple just score a pretty big win? Case closed, right?
Not so fast. The
Hmm.
court did rule that XRP, the token itself, is not a security. But, and this is a big but, the SEC is appealing.
Hold on. I'm getting some serious deja vu here. What's the catch this time?
This appeal isn't about XRP, the token, anymore. It's about the initial sale of XRP by Ripple executives back in 2014-2015. The SEC is claiming those sales, they violated securities law.
So basically, okay, you won that battle, but we're not done with you yet. Classic.
Exactly. And get this, their appeal, it was filed late, which is raising some eyebrows. Questions about the SEC's competence, their motives. Some are saying this could backfire big time.
Okay, so we've got China playing crypto chess, Bitcoin price predictions going through the roof, and the SEC being, well, the SEC. Anything else we should have on our radar?
Just one more thing. Remember that R word everyone's been whispering about?
As in recession. Isn't that, bad news for pretty much everything?
It might seem that way, but stay with me here. Global economic alarm bells are ringing, no doubt. Even the head of the European Central Bank recently used the R word.
Okay, now I'm officially nervous. How is any of this good news for crypto?
Well, think of it like this. When traditional markets start getting a little wobbly, people, they naturally start looking for safe havens, right? Historically, that's been things like gold. But now, you've got Bitcoin entering the scene, an asset that's decentralized, not controlled by any government or central bank.
Right. So Bitcoin's outsider status, which used to kind of freak people out, is suddenly becoming its biggest selling point.
Exactly. And there's another layer to this whole thing. Remember when we talked about Bitcoin being deflationary? Well, in a typical recession, what do central banks do? They try to stimulate the economy, which usually means printing more money.
Which, as we all know, can lead to inflation, your money being worth less over time. Not exactly ideal when you're already worried about your finances.
Precisely. But Bitcoin, it operates in a completely different principle. Its supply is finite, it's capped. So while your dollars might be losing value with inflation, Bitcoin, in theory at least, is more resistant to those forces because it's scarce.
Okay, I'm starting to see why some people are calling Bitcoin digital gold, a hedge against economic instability and all that. But for those of us who still think of deflation as a bad thing, break it down for us. Why is Bitcoin's deflationary nature potentially a good thing?
It's a matter of perspective. In our current system, when we think about deflation, it's usually tied to economic downturns. People put off spending, waiting for prices to drop even further, and it creates this kind of economic gridlock.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the sucker who buys something only to see it go on sale a week later.
Right. But Bitcoin's deflation, it's not like that. It's not driven by these outside factors like a drop in consumer demand. It's programmed into the code. It's predictable. And because that supply is limited, the theory is that as more people adopt Bitcoin, that price is going to keep going up over time.
So instead of encouraging spending to keep up with inflation,
Right.
Bitcoin kind of flips the script. It incentivizes holding because its value is likely to increase as it becomes more scarce.
Exactly. It encourages a totally different way of thinking about economics, one that's focused on long-term value and scarcity rather than short-term consumption and racking up debt.
That's a pretty big shift.
Okay.
So from global recession fears to Bitcoin as the unlikely hero. We've covered a lot of ground here.
It's a compelling story, isn't it? And I think it points to a much bigger trend. People are starting to question the traditional financial systems, especially now with all this economic uncertainty.
Which brings us right back to that feeling of being on the edge of something massive. It's like watching the financial world as we know it get flipped on its head. But let's zoom back in from the philosophical stuff to the practical here. We talked about the SEC coming after those Ripple execs. Where does that leave regular investors like me?
Oh, the million-dollar question. And this is where that whole regulatory fog we talked about gets really frustrating. The SEC's approach to crypto has been, to put it mildly, inconsistent.
It's like trying to hit a moving target, except the target keeps changing shape and direction every time you think you've got it figured out.
Exactly. And that lack of clear guidelines, it makes it really hard for people to navigate the crypto world. You've got all this innovation happening at warp speed, but without those ground rules, it's tough to tell the difference between a legitimate opportunity and, well, something you don't want to touch.
Right. Nobody wants to end up on the wrong side of a regulatory crackdown.
Uh-huh.
So what's the solution here? What needs to happen for the crypto world to become more legitimate, more stable?
Clear and consistent regulations. That's the key. And not just here in the US, but globally. Remember our conversation earlier about China and crypto? They're not shying away from this stuff. They want to be the ones calling the shots in this new financial order.
So it's a race.
Yeah.
Whoever figures this regulatory puzzle out first gets to write the rules for everyone else.
You got it. And that's why this SEC case against those Ripple execs, it matters more than people realize. It's setting a precedent. It's sending a message to the whole crypto world.
It's like they're sending a message to the entire crypto world. We're watching you. But it's funny, right? While the regulators are trying to catch up, the narrative around crypto, Bitcoin especially, it's totally shifted.
It really has. It's amazing how fast things change. Remember the old days? It was all Bitcoins for criminals, shady dark web stuff. Now you've got governments hoarding Bitcoin, major institutions betting big, and everyone's talking about this power shift.
Total PR makeover. But seriously, what do you think caused this? It's more than just perception, right?
Right. I think it goes deeper. It's about how we think about money, you know. For decades, we've lived in a system where governments and central banks call all the shots. They control the supply, the interest rates, everything.
But what happens when that system starts to wobble? When people lose faith?
Exactly. You start to see those cracks. And people, they look for other options, something outside the system, something decentralized.
Something like Bitcoin.
Bingo. It's like that scene in The Matrix, right? Morpheus, the red pill, blue pill. But instead of just one guy, millions are choosing the red pill. They're waking up to this decentralized future. And they're voting with their wallets.
And it's not just Bitcoin anymore, is it? There's this whole universe out there. DeFi, NFTs, Web3.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a lot to wrap your head around. What are you most excited about? Where's the biggest potential for growth?
$1 million question. If I had that crystal ball, well, we wouldn't be here, would we? Sipping margaritas on a beach somewhere. But
Yeah.
seriously, it's impossible to say for sure.
Fair enough. But there have to be some clues, right? Some trends to watch.
Of course. One thing that's crystal clear. Crypto is about more than just the tech. It's about community, the projects that succeed. They're the ones that solve real problems, that empower people,
Right.
that build a strong community around them.
It's like the Wild West of finance, but with this like utopian energy, this amazing tech, but also this really human desire for something fairer, more transparent.
Exactly. It's a trip. And that's what makes the crypto space so fascinating, this collision of tech and social change.
So where does this leave us? What's the takeaway for everyone listening who's been on this crypto roller coaster with us?
Don't just watch from the sidelines. Things are moving fast. Whether it's China's crypto plans or Bitcoin going deflationary or the SEC trying to play catch up, understanding this stuff, that's power. It lets you make smart choices for your own financial future.
So true. And remember, this is still early days. It's like we're figuring out the internet all over again. But instead of cat videos, we're building a whole new financial system from scratch.
And who knows? Maybe that $1 million Bitcoin prediction. Not so crazy after all.
Now there's a thought to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us, everyone. Keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious. Until next time, you know the drill. Keep your eyes on the crypto world. It's only getting wilder out there.